you all to today's session on buying house in Germany. Myself, Balaji, I will be today's moderator. I hope most of the people know Vanakkam Germany and myself. We do videos all about Germany, explaining about the rules and regulations, insurances, and investments. And every month we do host some kind of special session which helps the expats to know the rules and regulations. In the past months, we have also conducted a session of buying house in Germany, and many people have missed to join the session. And there was a request that we would like. There was also a small request from the community. Please host the session once again so that we can get in touch with the consultant and who can help us in knowing the rules and regulations how to buy a house in Germany. So for today's speaker is Ajay Dingra, who is living in Germany. He's an Indian, but also a German as well. So I would request him to give a short intro before going to session so everyone will be aware about him. And we do have also Telegram group and Facebook groups. If you're new, please do also join in our group so that you will also get to you can also get all the support from our community people if you have any kind of questions. So yes, Ajay.
Right. Well, welcome, guys. Thanks for joining. I've gotten this request now a couple of times on a step-by-step process on how to buy a house in Germany. Right. Before we go into the nitty-gritties, I'm going to just walk you through the agenda of today's, let's say, 43.5 minutes. And after which we'll have obviously a Q&A session. I'm going to quickly talk about who I am. I'm going to talk you through the 8 steps of buying a house in Germany. I'm going to deep dive into 2 of them. And after that, we're going to have a look at what are you exactly looking for, because there's going to be differences across and differences in the approach. I'm going to talk about how to find a house. This is almost the toughest part. And in the end, I'm going to talk a bit about how to finance them. Right? If there are any questions, just leave a chat message so that we can pick them afterwards and discuss every question you have in detail. Well, who I am, I'm Ajay. I'm 42 years old, born and brought up here in Germany. And I lived in India for 5 years. I lived in Delhi between the age of 10 and 15. I dream in English, I speak in German, and I curse in Hindi. Right, so I'm fluent in all 3 languages, and I've got enough Spanish skills to order a beer and get home. I'm married, got 2 kids. I'm living near Cologne in Leverkusen, to be exact. I own my own house I'm living in, and I've got multiple houses and apartments as investments. And I'm also a certified home loan consultant. So if you were to buy a property and seek financing, you would call guys like me to help you out. All right. Now, buying a house is not easy anywhere, right? And the process differs from country to country. The different rules and regulations. But the first thing you should always do, whether it's in India or in Germany, especially in Germany, is to check on how much do I need, how much space do I need, and how much can I afford, and does that match, right? Doesn't make sense for you to go shopping if you don't have the cash in your pocket, right? And this is for a house loan true as well, right? So this is the very first step. Check on what do I need, where do I need it, and can I afford that, right? You might need to go up a bit on cash, on finances, or you might need to go down a bit on what you believe you need. The second step is going to be, and this is a bit in parallel now, is get a financing commitment. In German, it's called Finanzierungsbestätigung. This will speed up your process a bit while going to visit houses. Right? This is a document, a 1-page document, signed either by the bank or by the home loan consultant of your choice to say and state to a real estate agent or to the seller that some bank in Germany will back you in financing, or that you have the cash to buy the house out of your pocket, right? Which is rarely the case, but this is a document which will showcase the real estate agent that your money is where your mouth is, right? That it's not just watching apartments and looking how neighbors are living, but really that you want to buy, that you've already discussed this topic with some bank or with some home loan consultant, and you're really up to it. Now, if that's done, what you're going to do is search for a house. And we're going to go a bit into detail in that because that is one of the difficult parts, especially not knowing the language, not knowing the culture as well as German speak, right? If you found that house, you're going to start negotiating. And with negotiating, I wouldn't mean bargaining. It's not like on a bazaar. He says 12, you say 10, and you meet at 11, right? That's not how it works. If I say negotiating, I mean coming to a conclusion in pricing, as well as on terms and conditions, right? Sometimes the price might not matter much because you want the house as soon as possible, right? Or you want the house in 6 months. Then it might make sense to leave the price as is, but have a look at terms and conditions and say, well, I need the house now. Please give me the keys and we'll pay later, or other way around, right? So lots of negotiation parts besides the price. Now, once you finalize with the realtor or with the seller, what you're going to do is finalize financing, right? This is in parallel, so 4 and 5 are in parallel. To see that you've got a bank in your back, you've got the backing of a bank, that you are able to afford it, and that you almost signed the loan papers, or the loan papers are signature ready, right? That would be the right phrase. This might take a bit of time, and I'll come to that later on how to speed that process up, because banks are right now swamped with applications. Last financing the bank said we need 15 to 16 banking days to give an approval on the loan, right? And in some cases that might be too late for the seller, right? So it makes sense to speed things up here. What you then do as a buyer is to set up a notary appointment. You do that in alignment with the seller, but because you are paying the notary, you are free to choose the notary of your choice, right? It's very important. Although the notary is impartial, he needs to be by law, but nonetheless, you never know, right? You never know on the phrases and clauses he puts in if he knows the seller already. So it's your choice to go with the notary who knows English, who has done the process a couple of times, perhaps with you or with your friends, and you get it done a bit more conveniently for you. Now, what the notary will do is he'll provide you a draft of the selling contract, the buying contract. You'll have a couple of weeks' time, in most cases 2 weeks' time, to go through the draft, amend them, make changes, all in alignment with the seller. You send that new draft, the red line draft, to the notary. He'll implement the changes, and what he does in the notary appointment is read through the full contract. So it's 14 to 18 pages long. It's going to take some 45 to 60 minutes for him to read, for you to sign, for the seller to sign, right? After that, what you will be doing as a buyer is still sit with the notary. And in most cases, in 95% of the cases, the bank will ask you to sign a form to give the house as security, right? Seller will leave the room. You will still sit there for about, let's say, 15 minutes. It's going to read through the contract. You're going to sign, and that's done with the notary then. After that, it's going to take a couple of days for the first bills to come in for you, which is from the Finanzamt, from the income tax office. You'll have a bill from the court for land registry payment, as well as from notary in the end to pay him as well, right? What you might or might not do, some of my clients want to get that financed as well, but you'll get the funds at least for the house. You're going to pay the seller. The money is never going to hit your bank. You will not be, not even be tempted to take some of that out. It's going from bank to bank directly through your new account, but it's not, you can't touch it, right? As soon as that is transferred, it's going to take a couple of days or weeks, depending upon city and jurisdiction, for the courts to register the property in your name. And once that is done, you're free to go and take over the keys, right? if that has been aligned within the contract. After that, because funds have been paid out, you're going to pay back the loan in 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years, whatever you aligned with your bank or with your home loan consultant. Pretty simple steps, but the devil is in the detail. And I'm going to go into detail now into 2 or 3 points on which I believe are pressing the most, right? And I get the most questions on. The first question is, which I always ask, is what are you looking for, right? Simple answer is I want an apartment in Frankfurt or Stuttgart or Görlitz or Cologne. But the question is, do you feel comfortable there? Is it for your own use? Yes or no? Do you feel comfortable there? Do you feel comfortable? That's important, right? It's not for somebody else. Can you see yourself there, living there 10, 15, maybe 20 years? Can you see your kids there going to school? Can you go see them going to kindergarten there, right? How are the neighbors? Because they can make living hell for you, but they can also, you can be the best buddies with them, right? So check out the neighborhood a bit, check out the direct neighbors to see if it suits you, right? The full package suits you. Location, neighbors, infrastructure, stuff like this. If you want to sell the house, if you lived in for at least 2 years, profits are tax-free in that case, right? If you sell that before that, you need to pay capital gain taxes, which is based on your personal income tax bracket, right? So not like in India, but it's based on personal tax gains. Now, if you're looking for real estate as an investment, it's a different angle, it's a different approach. Location is key as well, because nobody wants to live in a village where there's no infrastructure. And the question is not whether you feel comfortable. The question now is, would you find tenants who feel comfortable, right? You might need and want marble flooring or a marble kitchen, but the tenants might not, right? So you need to then rethink your approach and rethink on what is important to them, right? And from now on, you're not looking at whether you feel comfortable and it's a nice neighborhood, but it's risk-reward flexibility ratio which you're looking at, right? You're looking at facts and figures instead of emotions. And it's totally ROI driven, at least it should be, right? I'm going to talk about that a bit later. And if it's a pure rental property, then capital gains taxes are only free after 10 years of having it in your own name, right? That's why most of the financing I do is on 10 years instead of 5 or 15 or 20, at least in this case. All right, because this is a question I very often get, what are those risk flexibility ratio you just talked about, right? There are a couple of options if you are looking at real estate properties as an investment. And I'm going to go from left to right. You've got very low risk, low reward, low flexibility, low cash flow, healthcare properties or serviced apartments. Put the German terms beneath them so you can recognize them. Pflegeimmobilien or serviced apartments in German as well. Banks don't see them as valuable as they're being offered, right? So cash is going to be low, very low. Reward is going to be low. Flexibility is going to be low, and risk as well, right? Next up is going to be non-furnished apartments. Eigentumswohnungen, which you see almost everywhere. ROI typically is between 5 and 7% right now. At least that's a good buy then. People need to, tenants will need to put in their own kitchen, their own furniture, and they can move in. So you need to move out, then they need to take everything along with them, including the kitchen. Next up is going to be furnished apartments. They're not that easily bound by the municipalities and the jurisdictions on rental caps. That's why you'll find more and more of these as well, including a kitchen, including some furniture, basic or upscale. ROI is somewhere between 5 and 15%. And obviously you'll have variations of this as well, which is an Airbnb apartment, right? So while furnished apartments, you're going to give away for 6, 12, 18, 24 months. Airbnb apartments are a daily basis thing, right? There's more effort involved, there's more work involved, a bit more capital intensive, but the ROI is better, right? Risks are a bit higher. During Corona, obviously nobody was traveling, so those apartments were empty, right? But that's the risk-reward ratio which I was talking about. You'll also have multi-apartment buildings, Mehrfamilienhäuser, where if you've got one building with multiple apartments in it, that's riskier than a single furnished apartment, but the flexibility is very high, especially on the tax part. Cash flow is going to be high, somewhere between 15 and 40%, if you do it right? If you have a chat with your tax consultant on how to do things, when to do things, those are very lucrative. Right. Now, the second most question I get asked is, how do I find these apartments? How do I find a property either for my own use or as a rental? Now, this I put a bit of thought into this, and it's based in an ascending order of a good deal, right? You'll find a lot of stuff on Immobilien Scout. You can start searching there. You'll find once in a while, you'll find something which is good, right? Then the not so well known is Immowelt. They're not the market leader like Immobilien Scout, but they're a rising star. They'll have some properties which are exclusive with them, which makes it a bit better, right? Because not everybody goes on to Immowelt because they only know Immobilien Scout. Next up is going to be eBay Kleinanzeigen. That's important to know because as a seller, as a real estate agent, I need to pay Immobilien Scout and I need to pay Immowelt. eBay Kleinanzeigen is either free of cost or cheaper, way cheaper than Immobilien Scout. So that's where if a real estate agent or a seller is trying to save on cost, although it doesn't make sense in this case, but if they want to save on cost, those 30, 40, 50 bucks, then they're going to go to eBay Kleinanzeigen. Okay? So that's where you can start searching as well. What I can also recommend is ask the banks directly. Each bank will have a real estate department where they're either selling, buying, or financing. They'll have portals which you can sign up for newsletters they might have to get data from them as a first, and instead of just going to Immowelt a week later, right? And while these are all on the market places to be found, you'll also have off-market options, right? Where a real estate agent or realtors in the region might want to save on effort of creating a nice advert. He'll just send out the newsletter to his 50, 60, 70 guys, which he knows. And you could be the first one there, right? So my 2 cents on this is create a, I don't know, one-page CV of yourself, of your family. Everybody's laughing, smiling. Talk about it yourself and give it to the real estate agent. Remind yourself every once in a while and check on whether he's got new properties in, right? If you're looking for a newly built home, what you always can do is ask Bauträger, or ask the builders, right? Whether that is Wilma or, I don't know, a couple of them across Germany, and search for those which are prominent and well placed within your region, right? Ask them on which projects are coming up. Also send them what you're looking for, and they might have something, some project which is coming up, or where a buyer did not come through with the financing, and you could be the next in line, right? But the most promising one is word of mouth, right? Tell everybody who wants to know and who doesn't want to know that you're looking for an apartment or a house. Friends, family, colleagues, everyone. Do that regularly, right? They need to think of you as soon as they hear an apartment is for sale. That good of a marketing you need to do, right? That's the best because you'll have very low competition. It's going to be very exclusive, and the seller might have things in mind which just saving effort, right? I don't want to show the apartment to 50 gazillion guys. I just want to have a chat with one-to-one chat with one or two, and that's it, right? So that's a best way of getting a deal on an apartment, on a house, on a multi-apartment, or whatever, right? There's one more thing, one more option, which I also get asked very frequently, which is, Ajay, I've seen an advert which is only 50% of the cost. What about foreclosures? Now, if you are looking at buying a house from a foreclosure, you need to know a couple of things. First is you are not allowed to visit the inside, right? So while on the left-hand side, you'll be having a look at outside, at the inside. You'll have full technical due diligence. You'll have a documentation due diligence which you can do. You can't do that on the foreclosure. You'll have limited data. You'll have limited pictures, and you're not allowed to go inside, right? So whatever happens inside, you don't know, which is a risk. Although I love taking risks, I need to know what I'm up against, right? I need to know at least, is it 100 euros, is it 1,000, is it 10, or is it 100,000 euros of risk I'm talking about? And in this case, you don't know that, right? So it's a game of luck you're playing here. I'm not saying that you could be successful and getting a very, very good deal, but on the other hand side, you could also, well, have a huge risk which you're buying. Because one thing you need to remember, which is it is in foreclosure for a reason, right? The seller is not paying his EMI anymore, or he did not pay some bills. Now, if he did not pay his EMI, I can safely assume that he does not have money. If that is true, then he will also not have maintained the house well enough. And if that is true, the risk of something being wrong within the house or in the house is very high. And the risk I can't know, right? And if you don't have the network of plumbers, of electricians who could call, and on the day of getting the keys, you could walk in and let them do their job. If you don't have that network, then I would rather not look at foreclosures, but have a look at on and off market properties. All right, now let's get into financing, because it is a bit different than how it's done in India. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see a typical house. Let's say it costs about 500K. And a typical house would mean that it's an old house. You will be asking for, that's going to be an asking price of, let's say, 500K. And the banks have internally, they've got thresholds. Thresholds at 80%, a threshold at 60%. And below those thresholds, the interest rate is going to be lower, right? Significantly lower. Let's say for 100% finance, which is 100% of the asking price, is right now at, I don't know, 1.3%. At if you put down 400K, 100K, and only need 400 from the bank, is going to drop to 0.8 or 0.9%, right? Below 60% is going to be 0.5, 0.6%, right? So it's going to be significance in you putting a bit of down payment, right? If you still need to modernize a house and you're asking the bank for, let's say, 10% more, it's called 110% finance, which is more expensive. Interest rates are going to rise to 1.8, 1.9, even sometimes 2%, depending upon property and your credit score. Now, each bank has different thresholds within those 80 to 100%, right? So it might make sense to have a look at different banks. If you've got, let's say, 10 or 15 or 20K cash available, then one bank might not drop the interest rate, the other ones might, right? So it makes sense to compare different banks and ask for different options on putting in down payment, not putting down payment. That's yeah, a bit of looking here and there on your house, on a housing loan. Now, while you might get 100% from the bank, most of the banks, 98% of the banks, will ask you to put in the ancillary costs from your own pocket, right? Kaufnebenkosten in German, that comprises of land transfer tax, real estate agent if involved, notary, court, and it makes up to between 8 and 15% of the asking price, depending upon the state you're in and whether a real estate agent was involved or not, right? This typically 95, 98% of the time is being borne by the buyer with your own capital, right? Eigenkapital. Now, how would I structure that kind of a loan? If the left-hand side house you want to buy, it's an old house, 500K asking price, and you want to modernize it a bit with 50K, there are two options of subsidies which you can get, right? With a bank called KfW, Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau. It's a bank driven by the German government, and all subsidies they want to give, they route it through that bank. So the first 100K you would get if it's for own use. It's a subsidized interest rate, right now hovering at 1.1%. They recently increased it day before yesterday from 0.98 to 1.1%, which is way lower than the typical banking loan you would get, right? The next one is a 120K loan if it is a house which you are modernizing to be an energy efficient house, right? The 120K is double subsidized. First off, it's a lower interest rate at 0.88% right now. And you would also not need to pay back 120,000 euros, but you would only need to pay back 102,000 euros. So 18,000 euros is a gift from the German government to push you towards being more energy efficient. The next block, 280K or 30K, is going to be from a bank, right? In this case, I just put a logo on the Deutsche Bank. It doesn't mean I'm affiliated with them, but just to put a logo there, right? And that is the part which you'll get from the bank itself. The rest is from KfW. Now, while this being the interest-driven structure of a loan means I have optimized it being as low of interest as possible. If you're looking for other things like flexibility or lower EMI, then structure might be looking a bit different, right? But that's a case-by-case basis. Now, you decided to go for a bank, and they are going to ask you, this is something I would recommend for most of you guys, is to go for an annuity loan, Annuitätendarlehen, where the EMI stays same across the term, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And within that EMI, let's say 1,000 euros, you'll have an amount of interest and amount of repayment of the loan. And that repayment part is going to increase because you already paid something back from the 500K. You are now at 490, for example, and the part of the interest, the amount of interest will decrease and the repayment part will increase, whereas the EMI is going to stay the same. That's called Annuitätendarlehen. And after the first term of, let's say, 5, 10, or 15 years, nobody expects you to have paid back the full loan, just like in India. So after the first term, 5, 10, 15 years, you would be looking to refinance the full rest loan you still have open. Another question, well, I know what to finance. I know how loans work. How do I find somebody who will finance me, right? You have 3 options here. You could obviously go to your house bank where you get your salary in, right? They know your spending and income situation best. They would be quicker in judging whether you're capable of putting the EMI together on a monthly basis or not, right? They might give a good offer, and it's least hassle for you. Go there, sign the papers, come back. I wouldn't say it's in a day, but it's going to take lesser time than with the other 2 options, which I'm giving you right now. The other one makes more sense is to go shopping, to have a look at different banks, because as I said, thresholds might be different, interest rates might be different. Recently, ING increased their rates. by 0.1 to 0.15% from one day to the other. So it might make sense to go for a different bank now, or DSL Bank or Commerzbank or whatever, right? They've got different rates, different points in time where they're more appealing on an interest-based basis. Some have their closing this quarter and they want to push for more loans. Some have already given away too many loans and they're pulling back and increasing their rates. So it will make definitely sense to compare banks, right, at any point in time. But obviously that is hassle for you, right? You need to contact the banks, need to get the right guy in the right place, but you'll get a better offer, that's for sure, right? And you can decide, right? Plus you can negotiate as well. The third option is outsourcing this whole task to a home loan consultant who will have access to 350, 400 banks and check with you together on which loan makes more sense, right? And even if you're changing your mind midway, I had a couple recently who thought we're going to give this one rent. So loan is going to be structured a bit different. Then they thought, well, no, wait a second, Ajay, we want to live there on our own. So the loan structure has changed once again. And we had a call recently and said, no, stop. We want to give on rent once again. So these things, the home loan consultant can do almost on the fly, right? On the other hand, if you're talking to multiple banks, it's going to take a bit more time there, right? People like me are the interface between the bank and the buyer. So you'll only see the bank, if at all, on paper while signing the home loan contract. And the big plus which you'll have is a guided procedure, right? While banks will try and outsource their work to people like me, because they want to reduce their staff and be more flexible. I'm going to be the one who's going to be guiding through. You'll be guided, and the bank's going to get, well, they're going to make sure that they get all the documents they need in the right place at the right time. Question is, how can I help as Ajay? What I can do is assess your properties. What I can do is list down pros and cons. I've done that in the past a couple of times now. Some have even given me 5 or 6 properties to evaluate. Because that takes a bit time, gonna need to charge for that. But what I can do free of charge is provide your home loan, because that is commission based, no charges for you. What I can also provide is personal loans. So if you want to buy a property in India, for example, and looking for a loan here because interest rates are more appealing here and they're more flexible here, you can contact me as well. And how to contact me? Balaji is going to provide a link to a form which can be used to contact me, and I'm going to call you back, or I'm going to write a WhatsApp, which is faster and doesn't need you to pick up at midnight. You can also do a face-to-face discussion. I just heard somebody from Cologne, so I'm going to love to see you guys in person as well. Or on a video call, just like now. I use MS Teams, which should be familiar. And also on Telegram or on WhatsApp, right? So all communication channels possible, I believe. All right, now I've spoken about, I don't know, 40-ish minutes. It's time for questions. So Balaji, if there are any questions which you can, which are made in the chat, just shoot.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ajay. Actually, today was a little fast. I would say that you saved 5 minutes of time. Last session, actually. Nevertheless, very good then. I hope now we got a very basic idea how things work in Germany, what exactly you will be able to help the community, and then what are the ways it will be supporting for us actually. I have seen not many comments today, but I have received one question from Banu Prakash Avula. Are we also insured when we buy a house, or do we have to pay an additional insurance?
Okay, so I would like to answer this question in 3 parts because there are 3 options. Option 1 is you're buying from a builder, right? The time the building is being built, the Bauträger, the builder, needs to be insured, right? What you can also opt for at that point in time is for a special insurance, which will cover any mishaps the builder is going to make. He doesn't see, but you can, right? So you can ask for an insurance there. Second answer to the question is if it is your own house, not apartment, but your own house, you're owning the full house, then you would need to opt by law, not by law, but by the banks. They're going to ask you to opt for an insurance called Wohngebäudeversicherung, which insures the property itself, the building itself, right? Let's say natural calamities, water, floods, that kind of stuff, right? If you live in an apartment, then that Wohngebäudeversicherung, that insurance for the property, has already been taken care of by the homeowners association, right? They need to be insured. They need to insure the full building, right? But other than that, there is no additional insurance you would need, either by law nor by the banks. But I believe Balaji has a package which makes sense to opt for if you're living in Germany, right? But that's a different story. Right?
Good. I think so. Yeah, it's completely answered. Banu Prakash, if you still have a question, you can still post a comment over there. I'll take you back. Next question from Mr. Crispin. Will a private bank take care of all the government subsidy also?
All right, a private bank. So if the differentiation is a bank and the subsidy, you will not see the KfW bank at all, right? The subsidies will all be taken care of by the bank. The KfW does not want to you to get in contact with you. They want to have a sole point of contact with the bank, right? So you're going to fill a couple of forms, sign them, or the builder will sign them for you. You're going to submit those to the home loan consultant or the bank, and they will take care of the rest.
Okay. Next from Shiva. Okay, now I'm getting a lot of questions now. How will be, is peer mandatory for buying an apartment in Germany?
No, it's not. There's a big but. Banks naturally look at risk, which are associated with residencyship. And the risk with the blue card holder of leaving or fleeing the country even is higher than with the PR. That's why German citizens on top, or EU citizens on top, then permanent residentship, so Niederlassungserlaubnis, and then come Aufenthaltsgenehmigung or blue card. If we're talking about blue card holders or Aufenthaltstitel, there are only a couple of banks in Germany who actually promote this and also going to give a loan for this. That's part one. Part two, if they do give a loan for this, then they will be looking at an increased down payment from your side, plus an increased interest rate, which is going to reflect their risk thought about you as a blue card holder, right? My advice would be to wait that 1 or 2 years to get the Niederlassungserlaubnis, because it's going to be way easier for you to find a bank, part one. Part two, it's going to be cheaper for you. One-off costs are going to be cheaper because you don't need that much down payment, and the interest rate is going to be cheaper. Right? But to answer your question in one word, all possible, but expensive.
Okay. Then we have a question from Banu again. How will the payment done from us if to be constructed apartments? Do the EMI starts immediately or only after the apartment is handover? Because I see many ads for under constructed apartments.
It totally depends upon the contract which you're going to sign with the builder, right? Because there are two options once again, as there's no golden bullet answer once again. Two options, either option number one, which is not going to be good for you because the builder says, I want to have an upfront payment of the full 300,000 euros let's say 300,000 euros, right? Then you're going to ask the bank for 300K. They're going to give you the 300K. You're going to give it up to the builder, and then the EMI starts for you, right? Which is not a good deal because you don't know whether it's constructed well enough. You don't have any security. And the bank might say, well, it's very risky for us because we don't even know whether the building is going to be built, right? comes to the second option. German called Zug um Zug, which is whatever building has been constructed. Let's say 10% has been constructed, so you're going to pay 10% to the builder, right? If 30% is constructed, you're going to pay 30%. Now, in that case, you are only going to need that point of money or that amount of money from the bank, right? So you don't need the full 300K in week one. You only need 10%, right? You're only going to pay interest on that 10% of the money you got from the bank. And the full EMI will only start then when you have the full amount from the bank, whatever point in time that is.
Guess it is answered well enough, I think so. Okay. Then please share, there's the next question from Raghav and Sudarshan. Please shed some light about the real estate bubble. People have been speculating in Germany since 5 to 6 years for it to break, and the prices are increasing steadily. It's including me as well. I do think the same actually. Like any other market, it has to be break at some point where the interest rate increases. What is your opinion on that? I know well you have 25 houses or 27. I don't remember exactly which rise in the last week by any chance. You must be knowing how exactly this works for this.
Yeah, I've got a couple of houses. Yes, so I can talk about the past, right? Because I've got experience there. The first house I bought has increased in value about 100%, and I bought that house about 8 years ago. That was an initial investment of 550K. Now, do I see the same increase the next 5 or 10 years? I don't know. What I do know is that interest rates are rising a bit right now. What I expect, and that's a personal opinion, what I expect them not to go any further up. What I believe is they're going to hover around 1%, 1.5%, because what I heard is that the European Central Bank says we're still going to flood the market with money. We're going to make sure that inflation stays at 2%. And money being that cheap, people obviously will look at opportunities to make money. And that's right now real estate, right? If I have a look at any cash lying around for 50 or 100K, you need to be paying a penalty to the bank. And people who have that kind of cash, 100, 200, 500, 1 million, they are pushing into the real estate market because they want to park their money somewhere, right? So I don't see, to answer your question, I don't see the housing market being a bubble. I know for a fact that properties in Germany are comparatively cheap to other European counterparts, Switzerland, Belgium, Netherlands, France, UK, if you want to consider that European Union still. So I still see a lot of room for rising housing markets. But that's just a personal opinion, right?
Yeah, that's really a variable thing. We cannot define exactly how it's going to work. But sorry, but from your experience, it must be you must have seen all the possible cases. Good. The next question from Naveen: how do I know how much can I get a loan for the property?
Yeah. You can contact me at any point in time. What it is basically based on is what is your sustainable net household income, right? So how much do you earn, which is sustainable, right? Side hustle or selling something once in a quarter doesn't count. Or if you have on-call duty only once a year, that doesn't count. So what I'll be looking at is how much do you earn on a monthly basis, which is sustainable, right? Which is not only you, but also your partner if you're married, right? So both together.
For the people who would like to talk with Ajay personally, you can also fill the form which I have shared in the chat window for you. The next question from Hemanti. I heard that interest rate has been increased after election. Is it true? Did all the banks have increased the interest rate?
Not all of them, no. And I don't think it has anything to do with the election. That's just a coincidence. You see, the European Central Bank has done a couple of measures to where banks say, well, now risk is a bit more increased. We need to push that to the market as well. Some banks have increased their interest rates very recently. Some have not, but I expect them to do the same within the next 1 or 2 weeks. Right, so we're talking about 0.1, 0.2% kind of an increase.
I hope it won't be increased randomly. Let's see. I don't know how many banks have increased this, Ajay. On a rough.
About 50% of the banks within the last 1.5 weeks. I recently am supporting a family of 3 to buy a house. They want to go with the bank, and they increase from one day to the other. You could still secure the old rate, but they increase it with a day's notice, right? So if you are looking to buy and finance, my thoughts would be have your mind clear on what you want, what you need, and then follow through, right? Because things might change and might change for worse, right? In their case, the EMI is increasing by 200 euros without any value, right? Just because of an increased interest rate.
Okay. What will be the pros and cons of buying an apartment in an Etagewohnung versus 3 to 4 floor buildings?
What was the first part?
Etagewohnung.
Yeah, that's the same stuff, right?
Even I was confused actually. It's the same stuff anyway.
Yeah. So Etagenwohnung means you own the full floor, I guess.
I think he's talking about the first floor or else a building with 3 to 4 floors. I assume in that sense he would like to ask out.
Okay, but that's a too vague question, because it all depends upon the location, the property itself, and what you want to achieve, right? What you want to do. You want to stay near to the ground. You want to stay on 3rd, 5th, 10th floor. It all has pros and cons in it. It's very personal decision, right?
Okay. The next question from Pratul. Hi, Balaji and Ajay. I heard this from a friend. If I buy an apartment now for me to stay in and maybe 5 to 6 years down the line, I plan on moving back to India. If I sell the apartment, which is less than 10 years from the date of buying, we need to pay 40% of the selling price as capital gain. Is this true?
No, false. Short answer. Long answer. I think on slide 5, 6, 7, 8, I'll recall. I talked about 2 different options, right? Either you're buying for own use or you're buying as a rental property. Now, if you stay there 2 years, to be exact, it is 2 times 31st December. Then it is without capital gain tax, right? So 2 years minimum, then no capital gain tax. If you own the house or the apartment as a rental property, then it is 10 years.
Yes, we have also pointed this in the beginning of the session. I think so the person must have joined a little bit late, but short answer, this is not. Okay.
Correct.
Then the question from Riaz, if I want to buy a house which costs suppose 100K, how much will be my total expenses other than the bank loan? Approximate figure with dividends is an example of interest.
Right. So EMI, I would roughly say is going to be 3.5% of the total loan divided by 12 months, right? So 3,500, let's say 3,600 because it's simpler. 3,600 is going to be the EMI on an annual basis divided by 12 months, which is 300 euros, right? That is the EMI. On top of that, what you'll be needing to do if it is an apartment, you would be needing to pay something called Hausgeld, which has a couple of parts. One being the ancillary costs you would pay as a tenant as well, so water, heating, taxes, etc. And the other part would be of that Hausgeld is you're going to pay something into the homeowners association fund, right, for maintenance and repair of the full building. And that is totally dependent upon the building, upon the property, on what the homeowners decided, whether it's going to be high or low. So that's, I don't know, another, let's say 80 to 100 bucks. So you're looking at 400 euros in that case.
Okay. Is it worth to wait and buy new construction or go for an older house?
Depends upon what you want. And how much risk you want to take, how much you want to design your own.
Maybe you can tell what is your, I mean, where exactly you're living. How old is your house?
My house, I live in a house which has been built in 1927. We bought it for about 170,000 euros some 12 years back, and we invested 120,000 euros in it, and it's almost as new. Electrical wiring, insulation, roof, heating system, everything's been replaced, right? To make it up to standards of, well, 2010, right? So buying an old house has its pros. It has its cons as well, right? You might find something which is not working, right? But then you've got the liberty to change it as per your requirements, your wishes, right? You want a new roof, put on a new roof because it needs to be done anyway, right? So there are pros and cons, right? Of an old house versus a new house.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's also a question again from Pratul. This is an interesting question for me as well. What would be the situation if it's a mixed scenario? I live in the apartment for a couple of years and then I decide on renting it. Let's say I live for 23 months or whatever case. How exactly this will work now?
If it refers to the tax question, then
Yes, it's related to tax question.
You live there 2 years, and then you can sell it, rent it, whatever you like.
But how does the tax impact on it? What is the tax impact?
None. If you live there 2 years, you can sell it, right? Or you can rent it out. It doesn't really matter, as long as you stay there for 2 years, right?
Now let's take an example. Actually, I'm staying there for 1.5 years and I had to go back, so I'm renting it. But I plan to sell the house after 2.5 years. How will the profits be taxed here?
Yeah. Nice question, because it depends upon the 1.5 years. If you, that's a tricky question, because if you start living there on January to March, then it's going to be fully taxed if you sell it after 5 years, right? But if it is November to January next year, right? Because it's 2 times 31st of December, to be very precise, then there's no capital gain tax which you would need to pay after selling it after 3 years or 4 years or 5 or 10 years. Right?
Okay.
So make sure, if you want to save the taxes, if that is your primary goal, then live there for 2 Christmas Eves or 2 New Year's Eve, and then do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Good. I think so. We should also check out with the tax concern if there is any kind of loopholes to hide these things actually in a simpler way, if at all. He may give some suggestions.
I wouldn't hide anything.
I mean to say hide, maybe some tricky way how we can say that why I'm renting that house. Good. What are the options if we decide to move back to India after buying a house?
Yeah. Very common question. You need to, and that's something I do in my initial talks with the client, is to ask on what is your exit strategy, right? What do you want to do in 5, 10, or 15 years? Now, most of the time, people say, well, I don't know. I might leave, I might not leave, right? In this case, you'll have a couple of options. First, if you're smart, do a very flexible financing, right? Look at a shorter term, not 15 years, don't go for 20 years, go for 5 or 10 years, to make the impact of penalties very low. Second is, at the point of selling, you can always, or whether you decided to go back, you can always ask yourself, do I want to sell the house? Want to get rid of it? Embarking on a journey to pay a penalty to the bank because you could not fulfill your contract which you signed? Or the other option would be to give it on rent, right? Search a tenant and give it on rent. Now, you not being here would mean that you would need to outsource the management of the property a bit, right? That'll cost you some 30 to 50 euros a month. But if you want to still hold the property and sell it after 10 years or 5 years or whatever, that would make a bit more sense, right? we've got a couple of options. We need to discuss them once we go into details on the property, on what you want to do in the next couple of years.
That's also another interesting question from Crispin. How to know the apartment house price is normal or high? I know it depends on multiple factors, but how can we compare between two builders?
Between two builders. Okay, so house prices are always going to be too high as a buyer, right? That's a given, and always too low if you're selling. But jokes aside, if you need to, if it's for your own use, right? Price might play a role, but will be there are going to be other factors which are more important. Infrastructure, location of the building, right? How the neighbors. These things will matter more than 5 or 10K. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. I would rather pay 10K more to know that my neighbors are my friends rather than not knowing them, right? But if you only look at the property price, there is almost no way to compare. You can have a look at the location, you can have a look at what is the value of the plot. That is something you can look up. But you will not be able to compare one property, one building, one structure with another one, right? Because they will use different materials, they'll use different flooring, different tiling, different electricity, different heating systems. So that's something which you will not be able to compare. At least it's very, very difficult.
Okay. Yeah. Another question, if you rent out property out after staying in it for 3 to 4 years, say on returning to India, does the 10-year rule apply or 2-year rule for the capital gains?
2 years. Because you stayed there 2 years.
Okay. Guess it was answered exactly to win. Can we buy a land here and sell it later, maybe after 10 years?
Once again, can you what?
Can we buy a land here and sell it after 10 years?
Of course.
Yeah, maybe I think so. You want to know about the taxation on this part as well. The same logic applies here as well.
Yeah. So it's for anything which is immovable, whether it is a plot or a building.
Okay. I buy a house, stay here for 3 years, then move to India. Can I rent a house to someone here? Yes, I guess.
Yes, of course. I would just advise to outsource the property management, because you don't want to be called at, I don't know, 1 a.m. in the morning, Indian time, because the water tap is leaking, and then you would need to find somebody to fix it. It's going to be a tough task from India. So that's why I was advising to go for a property manager to take 30, 40, 50 euros, whatever, to be that point of contact for you. And also make sure that the plumber, he's got a plumber, electrician and whatnot within his network, or even own staff to do it.
Okay. The question back to Banu Prakash, can we buy a land here and sell it later, maybe after 10 years? It is basically for the bank loan. Do we also get a bank loan for the land as well? Although
yes,
you won't be building a house, just a plot.
You can buy a plot, of course. You can buy a plot. You can get the loan for that as well. Yes.
Okay. After 5 years of buying a house through bank loan, I want to go back to India. What about the remaining bank loan, and who can I sell the house to?
Right. So assuming, because we already covered the question on what happens after 5 years, can I rent it out? Yes. If you want to sell the property, then one thing is going to happen. The bank's going to calculate a penalty fee, which is called Vorfälligkeitsentschädigung, which is based on law and cannot be calculated right now, because there are 1 or 2 factors in there which needs to be looked at that point in time, right? That being current interest. So if the interest is very, very low, they have no option to, it doesn't make sense for them to get the money back because they can't reinvest it. So the penalty is going to be very high. But if the interest rate is, let's say, 20%, they're going to almost waive the fee and say, give us the money back because we're going to reinvest it at 20%, right? So short answer is we're going to pay a penalty depending upon the that point in time, which is Vorfälligkeitserklärung.
Okay. How do I decide on a property budget? If it is based on my salary, what is the ratio between the property and annual salary? Any example for reference?
Yes, there are references there, but that's a case-by-case basis. Let me answer that. Let me also explain why. Your salary could be 5,000 euros. Because half a step back. So what the bank's going to give you is based on two main criteria. First is your net household income, right? Your sustainable household income, which might be 5,000 euros, just as an example. Now they might give you 450 to 500K for that, right? It's a real life example. The other thing they're going to be looking at is the property worth it, right? Are you buying a hut in a village without infrastructure in a remote somewhere, and you're paying 5 million for it? Then the banks will not give you that cash, right? On the other hand side, if you're buying a castle in the center of Stuttgart or Munich for 50,000 euros, they're going to welcome you and open a bottle of champagne along with you, right? So it depends upon two main factors: your own salary, 5,000, you're going to have 450, 500-ish value, but also the property, right? That's why it's a case-by-case decision at the bank. All right. Any more questions?
Oh, sorry. I was talking all the way. I was muted. Sorry. That is a follow-up question from Swati. I buy a house, stay here for 3 years, then move to India. Can I rent a house to someone here? The reason behind this question is because after a year or so, we lose our relationship. So in that case, how is it done?
You lose your what? Sorry?
Visa. She'll be losing her visa status here because she's not living in Germany for the past 1 year or so. How does the concept works here?
Okay, so now if your visa expires, which means you have a blue card or only Aufenthaltstitel, right? It is very improbable for you to get a loan. I'm not saying impossible, because there are a couple of banks who are doing this, but it's highly improbable, right? So the answer is you can sell it, you can rent it out. That is no, there's no difference there for the EU citizen as well. But it's going to be very difficult to get a house or get a loan for you in the first place.
Okay. I think this is the same question answered as well for Vin as well.
Okay.
Is it the next question from Ankit? Is it easy to sell the property using websites, or do I need to contact a property dealer? How much property dealer will take? What is the commission you would like to know?
Right now, it is very easy to sell. You would not need much of a website. I already showed you how to buy a house. Just reverse it, and that's your. That's how you should go about. But you could do it on your own. Take a couple of good pictures, or even ask a photographer to do it for you. That's always worth the money. And put it on the website and just do it yourself. That is totally fine and totally legitimate. What you could also do is obviously ask a real estate agent, and the fees depends upon whether you are selling an apartment or a house. If it is just an apartment, then the sellers and the buyer will pay the same fees. Let's say 3.57%. So it is 3% plus VAT. But that is based on the region you live. Right. Some states have Berlin, for example, 7.14%, and some only take 2.38%. That's subject to negotiation with a real estate agent. If it is a multi-story building, then you could push the full agent fees to the buyer.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know this actually. I thought it's a universal law says that it's 50-50 shared between the buyer and seller.
Yes, that is true, but it only is true for apartments and single houses.
The multi-story building, you mean to say that it's It has all the possible options, the shop and the houses and everything. That's called as multi-story.
Yes, yes.
Okay. I knew this. Yeah, I think you recently bought 2 months before the multi-story, right? For you?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. So you must have not paid the commission, I guess. So you know the way how to get the hunt for the house.
No, in this case, I was happy to pay the commission. I was happy to pay it because that's how the real estate agents call me first, instead of somebody who is bargaining on the price. Right? I'm happy to pay it because I know it's a deal for me and it's a deal for him. I try and negotiate and not bargain.
Okay. So then we come to the last question today. Can we transfer funds from India to buy the home here? What is the maximum amount and what are the tax implications?
They are, so you can send any amount, that there's no restriction. You just need to be able to explain where you got it from, right? So if, for example, you're sending your own funds from your Indian account to your German account, you just need to show, if the income tax office asks or if the banks ask, you need to be able to showcase where you have that money from, right? What's the source of the income there? But then only if it is above 12.5K, I believe, or 12.5K or 10K. There's a Money Laundering Act, Geldwäschegesetz, which will get in place. But you can send any amount to Germany.
And there is also certain limits. As far as I remember, my tax counsel was telling actually, if you have transferred the money from Germany to India, you can bring at any point of time without paying any taxes. Other way around, there is certain limit. I'm not sure if it is 100,000 euros or 400,000 euros. For a period of 10 years of time, you can get money from your parents as a gift, saying that I got it as a gift from my mother. You don't pay any taxes for that as well. I don't know the exact numbers, but there is certain kind of thing which you can say as a Geschenke. I think we are discussing also in a Telegram group. I remember, Ajay.
Yes, yes, I was part of that discussion. That's why I phrased my sentence as such that if you are the owner of the account and sending it to, there is no limit, without any implications. And there are implications if you're being gifted the money, right? And there are different thresholds for different family members, right? Parents is one, grandparents is another, cousin, brother is another. So these will have different thresholds. You already mentioned two of them, Balaji, 100K and 400K. There are also 20K thresholds, but that's a case by case, having a look at who is sending the money, right? Then you would need to pay taxes on that, right? That's why it will be beneficial if you were to send the funds from your own account from India.
Okay, good then. So also just want to point out one thing. If you people want to book a one-to-one appointment either with Ajay or with me or with Priya for any kind of question, insurance, investment or house loans or something, you can also use the link which I have shared in the chat window for you people. And people do not also miss to fill the form so that you can also get in touch with Ajay if at all you plan to purchase a house in the upcoming months or you already have an object and looking to have a better housing loan offer. Please fill the form so Ajay will also get in touch with you. I will be sending that as well in the mail. I've also posted the same thing also in the chat window. So please take a moment to look over that as well. And there is one more question, two more questions, I guess. So rent or house loan. Yeah, rent or home loan, which is better for a period of 10 to 15 years?
That depends upon whether you believe the housing market is going to rise. Then obviously buying a house would make more sense because you could have a gain on that after selling. If you believe it's going to go stable or decline, then renting is a better option, right? That's in a nutshell, I would say.
Okay, there is a question from, there is a reply for another question from Swati. I think so that is answered as well. So I'm just keeping up. If it's not answered, please just let me know, Swati. A question from Amit. If I buy home with loan with German passport and after 7 years I decided to move back to India and give back my German passport, can I still rent home here? The answer is going to be yes, but you're going to pay taxes on the profits whatever you earn through rental objects. That is going to be subjective based on the location where you're going to be settled, either in India or in US. You have to check out the double taxation rules over there, Amit. And the next question from Kantanay and Swaminathan. When I buy home and rent it here, I hope we have to pay tax for additional income.
Yes, your hope is correct. So all the rental income, so what we're going to have some income, you're going to have some expenditures. They're gonna have a look at those, and whatever is the total, that is going to be your basis for the taxes, right? Sometimes it is negative, right? So I'm not earning as much as I'm spending. That means my income tax, I'm going to get a refund, right? If it's the other way around, obviously I have to pay. It's my personal tax bracket which applies here. There's one caveat. Obviously, if you were to buy as a limited, then other tax brackets apply.
Okay. Guess we almost come to an end. For the people who also want to join our Telegram group, we do support the people in asking any kind of general questions. I've shared the link. Please do join our Telegram link. You can also get in touch with Ajay or me or with any other community people who are very voluntarily helping us people actually. I think so. Vin has asked the question. If I buy home with home loan with German passport and after 7 years I decide to move back to India and give up my German passport, can I still rent home here? Sorry, didn't understand the answer. Could you please repeat?
Let me take that. Yes, you can. That's a short answer. Long answer, which Balaji tried to convey, is there is going to be a tax implication for everybody who moves back to India, not only you, because taxes is not based on where the property is, but where you live, right? And you need to have a look at double taxation treaties. That's something which Balaji mentioned.
So basically, simple logic actually. When you're living in Germany, there is something called Grundfreibetrag. Any income, if it is less than 9,744 euros, you don't pay any taxes since you're living in Germany. Assuming that you're going back to your home country, every single penny what you earn, you have to pay tax on it. There is no something called basic tax-free allowances. So this is a very simple way to understand every single money what you earn from Germany while living in India, you have to pay tax on it based on the tax percentage wherever you're going to stay, and the double taxation concept, how your country is made with Germany.
But short answer, of course you can rent it out.
Yes. I mean, we are coming to the end of the session. I would be very happy if you, I think we have given an informative session for you people to answer your basic questions. There may be some questions still coming up in your mind running around. You can book an appointment with us, or you can also join the next session in the upcoming months as well. We would be very happy if you can leave a small feedback on our Google page, leaving some words saying how good Ajay and how good the moderator was. Give an honest opinion. This will help us for us to improve in the future sessions as well. All the negative feedback are also welcome. We won't be deleting it for sure, so we are accepting that as well. So thank you once again, Ajay, for your time on Friday evening as well. And thank you people all for joining the session.
Thanks for making it so interactive. Thanks for your time on a Friday evening. Have a lovely weekend. See you next time. Bye-bye.
So it's time to party, I think, Ajay.
Once again?
It's time to party now. Good then, Ajay. Good, the session was good enough. It was almost 40 people, I feel. It was a good round, actually.
That's good.
Okay, just a minute, Ajay. Just stop the recording just a second.